liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go?
We have a very special guest today. You're going to be stunned to find out who it is and how this is actually going down. Because I'm just as stunned as you are. Are you even ready? You're not ready. You're not ready right now. You don't understand. I'm not ready because this is so exciting. The first ever LLIRL with TRHL.
What's up? How's everybody doing?
So we have two microphones, but we only have one camera because I'm still bootstrapping this thing. Mm-hmm. Josie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's really exciting.
I know. I'm so excited. I never get to have conversations in person. I feel almost like I don't know how to do this anymore. I'm just used to it being here. So because of the camera angle, I'm gonna have to keep us both just kind of looking in this direction. But it's still better than virtual, especially with your internet connection at home. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This has been really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get into it. For those that don't know you, I think that like most people are familiar with you because of your Twitter, other social media, some interviews that you've done, but I don't feel like anyone has ever taken it down like the origin story of Josie. Would you be open to doing so?
Sure.
Okay. Where are you from?
I'm from Western Massachusetts, a little podunk town with more cows than people.
Okay. And you have now moved recently to Broadly,
Florida.
Okay. I know we've got to keep it non-specific. And I am also a transplant from California. Not that matters. We're not talking about me today. So you obviously you've come into the libertarian realm to a large extent.
Yes.
Your political origin story, though, familial.
I never fit in anywhere. I was always kind of a little different. And when it came to politics, I was a little different too. And I couldn't really place myself. And then 9/11 happens and I'm in high school and, everyone's all like, we're going to war. And I don't really know how to feel about that. So it was all about kind of finding out who I was and trying to figure that out. And I went years having no idea. And then I found the Ron Paul revolution in 2012. Oh, and nice. That's where I was like, oh, there you are. Like, right. This is where I'm supposed to be all along.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I similar, but like, I think after 9/11 in particular, I was probably as nationalistic and statist as I have ever been.
Yeah.
And militaristic. I was like, we got to kill these people. Like whoever did this, they have to be punished severely.
Yeah. And now in hindsight, we're like, oh my God, what happened?
True. Did you, when you found the Ron Paul revolution, was it like making amends for having supported those wars? Did you feel like, or did you support them at the time?
I sort of did because I'd had a boyfriend that was enlisted the day after 9/11. And I was supportive of him.
Sure.
And I wanted kind of, I didn't want revenge, but I wanted justice.
Yes. And,
I'm a kid. I'm not really sure how to get justice, like trying to feel my way around a crazy world. And, and what did it? A lot of people talk about 9/11, but not a lot of people talk about 9/12, how the world was, how America was. That was the kind of country I wanted to raise my kids in. It wasn't all nationalism. It was everybody cared about each other.
Right.
And
coming together.
Yeah, everybody came together, and then there was a war to all come together behind, so it was a little twisted, being a kid, a teenager trying to navigate that.
I think that's an interesting point because I definitely felt, for those that are old enough, you'll remember that sensation. Well, that you're right. It was such a beautiful feeling in some ways, but then when you realize what we did as a result of that togetherness, out of that, unanimity of thought, it was really kind of egregious in hindsight. So like, is that the country that you want your children to be raised in?
Nah, it wasn't, but because we trusted our government was like, all right, this happened. This was terrible. He's standing at ground zero. you know, got his arm around a firefighter,
Yep.
you know, and everybody was affected by that.
Big time.
You know, everybody like felt that. It like the world felt that, you know, and he's like, well, this is what happened and this is who did it.
Yeah.
And we're going to get them, you know, because, you know, he's saying this and we're staring at rubble. We're like, they're searching for human beings and they're still, you know.
I think he even said that line. He said, he's like, we're all feeling this right now.
Yeah.
But the people who did this to us are going to feel, or did he say they're going to hear from us soon or feel this soon too? Like, it was powerful though.
That was
so powerful.
A really great speech. She was a great
it was
speaker. You know, and so
pisses me off
it was
now.
I know, because we were all kind of duped by it,
Right.
you know, and the way he exploited those people that died, you know. So yeah, so that was a really big part of my life. It's one of those, it's the place where, you know, my kids actually, they were supposed to ask their grandparents where they were or their great grandparents where they were when Kennedy died,
Right.
their parents where they were when the Challenger, or their grandparents where the Challenger exploded, and their parents 9/11, where were you? You know, because that's a place everybody remembers where they were when they heard about it.
Yeah. Do you think that will be the same thing for your children when it comes to lockdowns?
In a way, I hope to God they never experience that one thing that brings them together.
Yeah.
I know the mainstream media is trying to make everything that one thing.
Well, January 6th was
January
obviously.
6th. Yep, they did that. They did. I remember during when the Kavanaugh hearings
Right.
started, they said this is like our 9/11.
Oh my God.
Like, you know, everything was their 9/11. They have to make everything a big deal, you know, and it's like they're so, I think people are desperate for some kind of unity.
Yeah. That's true.
You know, they're craving it, so they're willing to pile behind anything, but they're doing it in the same way that they did with 9/11, but it's more evident. They're like, we're gonna, you know, we need to unify behind this and we need to kill these people.
Right.
You know, like.
Well, I think that's what happened with the lockdowns though, is like, but instead of unifying all of us, it was unifying half of us against the other half.
Yeah, exactly the same thing.
Yeah, very tribal though. But what's so concerning is, in hindsight, as egregious as it was to have us all unified against basically just like any Middle Easterner, which is kind of what the spirit of the nation was at the time.
Yeah.
Now they've used the same kind of psychological operations. This is my opinion. You don't have to agree, obviously, but they use basically the same psychological operations, manipulation, propaganda to have us unified against us.
Yeah, and I think you're correct.
Yeah, and it's so disturbing. It's so disturbing that so many of us went along with it.
Look at the Me Too movement, the same thing. You know, we're unifying. We have to get together. You know, the lockdowns, we're all in this together, but then you have an enemy.
Right.
You know,
and it's not some foreign enemy. It's now in your backyard. Now it's a MAGA supporter. Now it's a Trump. You know.
Yeah.
It's all so disturbing. All right. Well, we're getting too current. I want to talk a little bit more about. So, did you have any political leanings from childhood that before 9/11?
No. I stayed out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing. I mean, I wasn't like super popular or anything. So all my friends were kind of weirdos. Oh no, I definitely wasn't. So all my friends, I was kind of friends with everybody, but I was friends with the weirdos too. And, you know, the weirdos that they were the skaters and the goths and the outcasts and, you know, LGBTQ group.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing. Yeah. There was the Gay Straight Alliance.
I don't think they had T and Q back then.
No,
I remember.
No. There was the Gay Straight Alliance.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
GSL or GSA. So that's, you know, I did that because I had a lot of friends that were starting to come out. Like then there were some that were trying to find themselves and going that way too. And, you know, they're all happily married to straight people now. But yeah, it was there for a couple of them that needed it.
Have you always been pretty accepting of like any gender, gay, whatever?
Yep. I've always been very accepting of it.
Yeah.
I remember when I got involved with the Gay Straight Alliance, my mom sits me down. She's like, "Are you gay?"
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, "No, I'm an ally." You know, because I had friends that were gay, and they still are today. You know, like coming out, and that was a hard time to come out.
Right.
You know,
well, it's a weird thing because I think that most people of our generation felt similarly when it came to gay people. We were like, you know, particularly compared to our parents, we were much more accepting. We were like, no, these people are, this is who they are. And I accept that. And now it's kind of gotten to a point where we sound like the old stodgy conservatives when it comes to trans people, for instance. But unfortunately, I genuinely think it's different because there is kind of a social contagion when it comes to many of these young people that are classifying themselves accordingly. Like this isn't, it's not really a fad thing to,
It's
you know,
kinda like a
being gay or being born gay or lesbian or whatever. Like that's real. There's a lot of people that are like that. And I'm not saying that being trans isn't real, but I think that there's a huge percentage of the people that are classifying themselves accordingly that probably, I'm totally not going to be able to put this on YouTube now, but I'm
that's
just being
okay.
honest. I think there's a social contagion that's happening. What do you think about that?
I do. I think there's some kind of I saw a lot of it in Massachusetts. I think there's some kind of, for kids, a rite of passage almost, a way to stand out and be an individual. You can pick your gender.
Right.
You know, you can pick your pronouns. You can flow in and out of genders, you know, like it's going to make you different.
Right.
You know, when we were kids, it was Jenko jeans and flannel shirts and, you know, like
She's not
that
lying. I wore big old like parachute pants.
Oh yeah. You know, like that's the thing. Like that's how so we wanted to kind of be ourselves and be seen as different and edgy. And so our parents bought us Jenko jeans instead of
Levi's,
right? And
Yeah.
and you know, or today they gave us Jenko jeans and flannels instead of hormone pills, you know, like
Yeah.
that's what they did. And we
we
outgrew
could
it.
grow we
Yeah.
could grow out of
We
this
could grow out of
stupid
this.
style, but
Exactly.
you know, now they're actually like putting chemicals in your body that are not so easily reversed.
Exactly.
I mean, I know that you moved to Florida in part. Well, go ahead and tell the story of why you moved, because obviously it had a lot to do with your children. I think anyone would assume that,
Yeah.
but go ahead and like explain the difference in treatment that you've been experiencing and what catalyzed that decision.
Oh my goodness. So 2020, the pandemic happens. My children at the time are, let me see, 2020. So 11, 10, and 4. And they're pulled out of school immediately, you know, because nobody really knows what's going on.
Sure.
Pull them out of school. And then they stay virtual for like a year. They stay virtual.
That means that they're at home then.
They're at home,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're in the virtual school. And there was forced masking everywhere. Like you couldn't do anything in 2020. You had to wear a mask everywhere. So I have a 4-year-old at the time. And I don't know how much people know about speech and language development in a 4-year-old, but they need to see how words form in order to form the words. So this is already becoming a problem because every time I'm out with my child, and I mean, what I would do with my children, I take them grocery shopping and I'd teach them the words, you know, like, and I'd show them prices and, you know, I'd engage with them in that way. But here I am now, I've got a mask over my face.
Oh my God.
And I'm not able to teach my daughter numbers and prices and how things work when I'm in public anymore. So that puts a detriment on that immediately. And that's 2020. 2021 rolls around, the vaccine comes out. And, you know, they're trying to slowly get it to kids this whole time. Meanwhile, the kids are allowed to go back to school, but they all have to wear masks. They have to test. They have to, you know, the minute somebody in their cohort came up positive, everybody would have to test or be sent home, or like they had a lot of really strict rules around that. And, you know, these are kids. Again, we're starting to find out kids don't really catch it, or, you know, like if they do, it's not bad, you know, so we're finding this out. And then they're kind of getting to the point where they're like, all right, well, you know, they're kind of playing with the idea that kids who get the vaccine aren't going to have to wear a mask, but the other ones aren't. So that's literally putting an armband on your kid now at this point, you know, like you're the
How dare you make that metaphor?
I know, right? But this is what it is.
It was pretty similar, let's be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and then at the same time we're dealing with all this, I'm hearing about SEL happening, you know, in the school.
Those that don't know, that's social emotional learning.
Yes. So I'm hearing about SEL happening in school. And I have my oldest daughter, now almost 14, is a tomboy. And there is tomboy erasure. And this is a thing. This is girls who are just a little boyish are boys. Like that's just how they're interpreted.
So strange.
Yeah. And you know, like, I mean, I wasn't really a tomboy growing up, but I had friends that were, and they, you know, grew up and married their husbands and have kids and are perfectly typical wives now. But there was a lot of force around how it's not normal.
Yeah.
Like if you're a tomboy, that's a gender. right?
Right.
So there were people who started
So crazy.
referring to her as they them pronouns,
Right.
which made her really uncomfortable. She didn't know how to challenge it. She's a kid and she's a little shy. And then somebody
They referred to her without her requesting.
yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I got an email home.
Oh my God.
Talking about my child as a they them.
What the
So
hell?
yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. So and then there were people trying to tell her she was gay when she was 10 because she was a tomboy. And I'm like, well, do you like girls? She goes, no. And I'm like, then we're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, who did? She's like, well, they said, I'm like, who's they?
Yeah, was
You
it
know,
a teacher?
No, friends.
Oh,
Friends were
were.
suggesting
Oh my
this.
God.
Friends were suggesting this because of what she looked like,
Oh my
that she must
God.
like girls, and it's just like you like sports.
That's
And that's
crazy.
okay. So that was another breaking point.
I mean, I don't know if this is TMI, but you sent me pictures of her. She
Mhm.
looks very fast. She looks like a young version of
She
you.
looks
Like
exactly like me.
why do they? Is it her attire?
Yep, her attire. So
Okay.
when we lived up in Massachusetts, she'd wear sweatpants and t-shirts.
Oh, okay.
And she played sports and she was excellent, and she is excellent at sports. She's gifted at sports. She could be in the Olympics someday. Like she's that good. And I mean, people were telling me how great she was when she was in third grade, that she's amazing. She could be in the Olympics someday. And that never changed. I believe that she still could someday. The other thing about this child is she's got an illness, a 1 in a million condition called CRMO. That's chronic recurrent multifocal osteomyelitis. And it means that her immune system breaks her bones. So she is battling, a great athlete, a tomboy, battling a condition that if she gets inflamed, she can break a bone. And she's had a broken spine for a couple years now. So she's battling this, and we're treated, at hospitals that everybody knows about in Massachusetts. I won't be specific.
Sure.
And they decide in 2021 and 2022 that any child not vaccinated that's over 6 years old can't go to a venue, in Boston, for instance, in any city, can't go into a venue, can't go into a restaurant, can't watch a sports game, can't go anywhere. So I'm thinking, if I'm bringing my child for treatments, I can't stop anywhere with her. I can't go in anywhere with her because she's getting she has this awful condition that I'm not about to mix with a experimental vaccine. And she's not welcome in an establishment, so that was kind of the thing that really, I was like, all right, we just I can't live in a place.
If it saves just one life, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I can't raise my children in a place that treats them like second-class citizens. And that's what it came down to. I got to Florida with my children, and there's no pandemic. Like, it's just, everything was normal, and nobody was sick, and nobody's wearing masks. And I don't know anybody who's gotten sick since I moved here. Nobody in my kids' schools gotten sick. It just doesn't exist. It's like two different worlds. And meanwhile, up in Massachusetts, everydy's still getting sick.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm not going to go into why that's the case, but I think we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think an interesting point about what you were talking about with the gender stuff that's now happening with this next generation. Their generation probably views us as very regressive, but I think that there could be an argument to be made, and I would make it, that in fact it's far more progressive to accept people as they are, as opposed to projecting a completely different gender or sexual orientation on someone just because they are a more feminine male or a more masculine woman or girl. And I think that that's not really progress, to have tomboys, for instance, be like, oh, well, you must be a lesbian, or you must be trans or whatever. Does it feel like progress to you?
No. And what kind of makes my skin crawl is when they tell a child, you were born in the wrong body. Like, think about that. You're telling a child who is impressionable and scared and full of wonder that they're an accident.
Yeah.
Like that they're a mistake, that something got screwed up, and that's why they're here as they are.
I think that ties in interesting to the pro-life, pro-choice argument too, because I think, like, once you go down the line of thought of pro-choice, of like, okay, this is a mistake, it's okay to just rid myself of it. it's not that far of a logical leap to say, well, your body was a mistake, so you can do whatever is necessary medically to change it. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing to teach a young person.
Not at all. It's incredibly damaging. You know, and I saw, like, you know, some of my kids' friends going through it. And, you know, the best thing, like, they'd want to know how to be supportive, so they'd use the right pronouns and everything. And I'm like, the best thing you can do is make them feel comfortable in their own skin. The best way you can, like, you praise them as they are.
I think so too. I mean, to me, that's just kind of classic good parenting, is to, like, try, because for the record, everyone's uncomfortable with who they are at some point in their life, unless they're completely out of their minds. So I think that that's what good parenting usually is just trying to encourage your child to accept themselves for who they are, work on the things that they can remedy if they, you know, if it's like, I want to be a better athlete or whatever. But self-acceptance, that used to be parenting 101 to some extent.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened is the trans agenda came in and decided they wanted to recruit children, you know? So who they target.
She said it, not me.
We won't be on YouTube, don't worry. So who they target primarily is girls who are from 10 to 13. And it's because these girls go through changes and they get body dysmorphia when they're going through them, because they get physical changes that everybody can see.
Right.
And that makes them uncomfortable. So they might dress in baggy clothes, you know, or they might try to bind themselves, you know, something. So this is a way to target them and say, oh, well, you feel this way because you were born in the wrong body. It's like, no, you feel this way because it's normal. You're going through a physical transition. Like, your hormones are crazy right now. Like, this is normal. You need to, we need to get back to that.
Yeah. Well, a mutual friend of ours has talked about this before, but it was like message boards that she was on that were very encouraging of anybody who was questioning their sexuality at all to just kind of declare whatever they were questioning, you know, the opposite side, and just be like, oh, well, I'm not so sure, so I'm gay, or I think that I'm uncomfortable in my body, so I'm trans. And I think that latter one is what concerns me the most, because particularly during puberty, I remember it well. You know, I was 5'4", under 100 pounds, and the next year I was 6'1" and 200 pounds. You know, it was very rapid, and that during that period, you're so uncomfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
But that is just completely natural. So had I been reading these message boards at the time, where they're like, oh, do you feel uncomfortable in your body? I was like, hell yeah, I do. I'm awkward. I'm a little tiny boy. You know, I just don't think that that's a good thing to encourage people to follow logically. And it seems as if this is why I go down the social contagion line of thinking, because if you're telling everyone that's going through puberty that, oh, do you feel out of place in your current, like, of course you do. Of course you do.
Yes, exactly. I agree.
Okay. Well, anyways, I just that one really concerns me, because I feel like there is a huge percentage of children that are going to be dealing with this period for, you know, the rest of their lives.
And we don't know the long-term side effects of this.
No.
We're going to see kids who are sterilized, you know, as teenagers, like.
And we're not just talking about the vaccine.
No.
We're definitely not on YouTube.
Not on YouTube. Yeah. So we're just not sure the long-term effects of this, and what's going to do for the population, and B, the mental health of adults moving into the future. And, you know, like, are they going to be able to sue these doctors? Like in some states? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Florida's might be one of those, even that's kind of trying to pass some legislation. So yeah, I think that'd be a way to stop it, is if there's a consequence.
Yeah. I mean, that's the weird thing, is that they take an oath, but as we've learned over the past 3 years, that oath to do no harm doesn't seem to really hold.
It is Hippocratic.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because I think about this sometimes myself, you know, what makes you certain that liberty is better? Because there is a fair argument, even though I think it's wrong, to say that there are things that we aren't equipped to handle. National defense is a good example that everyone uses. So if that's the case, that we go, okay, yeah, we should allow for national defense. We're going to have some level of federal government to do so. Why should we not turn over economic planning? Why should we not turn over schooling? You know which side I come down on, but I'm just curious if you have a differentiator that you say, like, okay, liberty is the better path here, or is that the base conclusion and then you work backwards?
When it comes to the government, it's about checks and balances. So where do we need the most checks and balances? The military and justice system and police.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's minarchy. We don't need the kind of public checks and balances when it comes to economics. You know, we can figure that out without the government interfering and making it worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so liberty is the only way forward, because freedom is the greatest thing you can have. You know, and you wouldn't trade that for security, because and that's kind of the logical fallacy, because if you're free, you have the right to secure yourself. So why would you trade that to the government for security? Because you can do that yourself. That's why we have the Second Amendment.
Well, we did. No, I completely
Some states
agree.
are getting it back.
Yes, yeah, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think well said, and I think that the checks and balances aspect is where we get into the argument of minarchy versus anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Is, are those checks and balances working? And I think that with
they are in some states,
sure, but because with the Twitter leaks, we've got a lot of evidence that the checks and balances are not working when it comes to the FBI.
Yeah.
And the FBI functions everywhere.
Yeah, the FBI is an unconstitutional organization and should be abolished immediately.
All right, let's go.
But when it comes to elected officials as opposed to appointed officials or officials put into these alphabet agencies, you know, we need checks and balances in Congress, you know, and the check and the balance of that is either going to be the executive branch or the judicial branch,
right,
or the people.
Yeah.
And so who's checking the FBI right now?
She threw in the people. I like it.
Yeah. So who's checking the FBI right now? Elon Musk is checking the FBI right now.
To some extent, but they're still not paying any price. I think it's great.
But it's out there. We all know it. They're humiliated.
No, believe me, it's progress. I think what concerns me is, like, we've had so much information. Like, I could spend the rest of the show just detailing the examples of the FBI's corruption. It's so vast. You have the Whitmer kidnapping. You have the potential for J6, spurring on or whatever.
It's been going on since it was founded.
True, but
J. Edgar Hoover.
But we have so much evidence now. Like that, plus
imagine how much. I mean, the Kennedy files are coming out too. True. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Well, and we just had Martin Luther King Day, and I'm pretty sure they were involved there too.
Yep.
It's what concerns me is that, just as Edward Snowden disclosed so much about, NSA and just the spying apparatus that's been used domestically, and none of it's changed. You know, the people are more aware, but it's not changing. And same with the FBI corruption. Is there a breaking point at which people will actually say, okay, no, these organizations have to go?
Yeah. It's going to take a lot to undo them. I like that Congress is trying to put stuff forward about the FBI.
Yeah.
Because I know that that is a bipartisan issue. It's not simply a right versus left issue. A lot of people, even like the Squad, for instance, are upset with the FBI. So there's ways to push this forward. There's ways to change it around, pass the bill in the Senate. So if the House puts the bill forward, it goes to the Senate, and the Senate can change it around and send it back to the House, and then the House can change it around, send it back to the Senate, and then whatever bill they conclude on, that goes up and gets signed. So our worry is that Joe Biden would veto it.
He would.
So then they'd have to get like a supermajority to overrule that. This is Schoolhouse Rock with Josie.
I just became a bill.
Yeah. So I think that there's ways for them to make that bill work, as long as they can get it passed by Congress. So we'll see.
Yeah, I just don't see a supermajority, and I think that there's no chance that Biden doesn't veto. Yeah, if it was an actual abolition, there's no way.
Yeah.
So I just don't think you can reform.
You gotta watch who would vote against even an audit. Like, you gotta watch that. Yeah. See who does that, and that's who you want out of there.
Adam Schiff, we're watching you, buddy. Yeah, he's the like apex level scum of the earth
Mm-hmm.
congressional member, because he's also basically entirely responsible for the news media blitz when it came to Trump Russia collusion,
Yep. Yep.
which was all bullshit.
Yeah, he
So
said he had proof.
where's it at, Adam?
Never came out. Never
Yeah.
came out with the proof.
Such a fraud. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Okay, well, let's get into more of motherhood, if you will.
Sure.
Is it the most important aspect of your life? I feel like any mom has to say yes, but is it though?
Yes.
Okay.
It absolutely is.
Tell me why.
It's my purpose. I'm raising the next generation of people that are going to change the world. So that is the most important thing that I can possibly do, is to leave the world better humans. So
we need them.
I'm raising my kids to understand liberty. I'm raising my kids to understand the Bill of Rights, and they have their pocket constitutions,
right?
And so they'll carry those around. They have them in their cars.
That's so cool.
My kids, they're I'm teaching them, and we're in Florida, so they're learning the 1776 project. They're getting their education. They're getting their civics. They're getting it all. I'm just adding everything I can on top of it if they have any questions. And they're big into it, and they love what I do, and they're always asking more questions about what I do, about the founding fathers. And when they're mad at each other, they call each other communists, and it's hilarious.
Let's go.
Yeah. So I'm like,
that's
yes,
the type of smack talking I like.
Yep. Yeah. But then my middle daughter's got the biggest mouth on her, so she's the one who's like, if I make her do a chore, she's like, this is authoritarian. This is authoritarian.
You're a tyrant.
Yeah.
You're like King George.
Are you a communist, Mom? Yeah, exactly. So
you sound like Pol Pot right now.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you ad-free. Do you know why? Because YouTube hates me, and all I need from you is a favor. Go to rumble.com and enter Clint Russell, 2 S's, 2 L's. That's RUSSELL, and subscribe. Help get the numbers up over there. We already got like 1,700 of you that have followed me over from those bastards at YouTube all the way to Rumble. I really appreciate that. But I got 12,500 over on YouTube. So trying to get it on parity so that we can actually feel as if I'm still reaching the same audience. That would be lovely. I would really appreciate it. And while you're here, if you could hit a like, leave a comment, helps with the algos, and then press that subscribe button. Just do it. Thank you guys for tuning in.
So she's the one who throws it back at me, and I'm like, yes. I'm like, home is not a democracy. This is an authoritarian regime, and I am your Pol Pot.
Oh, this is my favorite story ever.
This is what happens at home. I'm like, when it comes to the government, because they'll also say things like, what about my free speech? And I'm like, I'm not the government. So it's all about
I can infringe all I want.
It's about differentiating it in real life circumstances, so your kids can see it and see you model it and see the difference.
Oh, they'll understand it better than anybody.
You'll get to be a little dictator for your children too.
True.
Know?
This ain't a democracy.
Yeah.
No, that's very cute. So I think that is something that we have really lost in our generation, and obviously the younger ones will see how they handled this issue, but that pride, particularly in motherhood, in the understanding the role in the world that you're playing. Like, I think that it's so backwards that people view the breadwinner as like, well, that's the important person in this. Like, I think for most, even for fathers that really understand it, I think that there's probably no more valuable role for not just society, but for your family unit than a stay-at-home, whether it be the mother or father. It's so vitally important, not just for the next generation, but just for your family unit. How did we lose that?
We lost that when they took the parents out of schooling, and they handed the kids over to the government, essentially, is when we started losing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that goes way back. So it was Rothschild. Was it Rothschild? No, it was either Rothschild or one of those other
that push for public schooling?
Multi-billionaire people. No, they pushed for women in the workplace.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Rockefeller or Rothschild. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
So they pushed for, they saw that there was unrealized taxation, we could be taxing the other half of the adults in this country. So they decided to push for women to go to work and call it female empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. And women started, getting out of the house and going to work. And they tried to make that like, this is your purpose. You're meant to be a secretary. Like this is your, and they convinced generations of women that their purpose wasn't to raise the next generation. It was to bring coffee to some guy, and it worked,
Right.
And so once that happened, and there's women out of the house, they're not in PTO anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing scouts. They're not den mothers anymore. They're working mothers, and so kids become latchkey kids, and they kind of start rebelling, and
Yep. I was one of them. Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think that it's true that there are some women that are more suited for a
Definitely.
career.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that either. But I think that the encouragement of everyone to go down that path.
Have
And
you
that,
seen
like,
the shaming that happens to
right.
women who are mothers that just want to be mothers?
Yeah. See,
Like-
that's it's like it's completely inverted again, because
Mhm.
back in the 1950s, if a woman wanted to work, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
But now it's the opposite. Like, oh, I just want to be a housewife. It's
Mhm.
like, no, you can't do that either. It's
Yeah.
like, well, no, what like, to me, once again, what, like, empowerment, the progressive stance is like, follow your passion,
Exactly.
and
some
if your
people's-
passion is to be a mother and stay at home and raise your kids, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. They have a mom home, and that's your job.
Right.
Who cares if it doesn't give you money? Like that's you're doing the most important thing you can be doing, and that's raising a generation of people.
Yep.
There
are some things that are more important than money, and I can't think of anything more important than your children.
Yeah,
It's bizarre to me that this is like even controversial amongst some. The feminist movement, I think, while it had its merits, has gone too far.
The first wave was great.
Right.
I understand their purpose, what they were doing. Second wave got a little bit
Little weird.
Little weird, and that's kind of that's the women's empowerment with working.
Sure.
Third wave is out of their damn minds.
Yeah.
They are crazy, and that's where we're like, nope, go backward.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's a trend with progressivism and progressive quote unquote movements, that there is a level of inevitable overreach.
Yep.
It's interesting because it almost reminds me of like children with a stove.
Mm.
Like
don't touch.
Yeah, you're telling them, but then they have to learn for themselves, and they put their hand on it. And I feel like that's where we're at with the modern progressive movement. Is it's just such a level of like basically extremist ideology at this point, that even the people that probably would have been considered like progressive on many issues 30, 40 years ago are now viewed as like
far right.
Yeah. And is that it? To me, that's just clear evidence that we're not the ones that have gone crazy.
No.
What do you think?
We're not the crazy ones. The Overton window has shifted into another galaxy.
Yeah.
So I mean, and what makes it even more complicated is you can be as progressive as they come. Like you could believe in communism, like straight up, like you like the rich need to give me all their money, but you could say, I believe that, you shouldn't be able to abort a baby after 30 weeks. Boom, you're far right.
Right.
It's all or nothing. And we saw that into government too, when they started the stuff with abortion, when they tried to codify Roe v. Wade. They weren't codifying it. They were bastardizing it. They made it extreme. They wanted to make abortion legal through 40 weeks in every single state. That's horrific. It's terrifying to me. And that wasn't what Roe v. Wade was, so there's no middle ground anymore. You're either all in or you're not in at all.
Right.
You're either in the club or you're not. And it's tribal. So that's why a lot of people are throwing their beliefs into the wind just to be tribal with their progressive masters.
Well, this is why I love our movement, is because we are kind of the outcasts. We're the remnant. We're the people that are not concerned with acceptance any longer, just because we realize that to be part of that tribe means that
you have to compromise your values.
Yeah, you're just a shell of yourself. And I've made this decision years ago, obviously, with starting my show, but you clearly have as well. We're just like, look, we have our beliefs, and if you want to put me in some category, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what the label is.
You have that label has no power over me. One of my favorite things to say when people are like, oh, well, that's racist or that's transphobic. And it's just some weird, like response to anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, sorry, your labels have no power here. And then what can they say?
Yeah.
Some responses that I've gotten to that. Oh, is that the best you can do? Another response I've gotten to that is, oh, well, yeah, it does. It's like nobody knows how to respond to that when you take their power away, because their power is in their labels. You say you don't have that power here.
I love it.
And they just have, that's it. That's their talking point. It's gone.
It's so true too.
You obliterated it.
Yeah, it's so true because the labels are their weapons.
Yes.
And
nobody wants to be stigmatized.
Right.
This is terrifying. Can you imagine calling somebody, like, even in the early 2000s, calling somebody a racist or calling them a Nazi? Like how horrifying that would be.
It's a big deal back then.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
If you were called a racist, oh my God. Now it's just it's almost lost its power. And that's dangerous too.
It is dangerous because
how are you going to call it the real ones now?
Yeah, well, I think a great example of that is fascism and fascists.
Oh yeah, everybody's fascist.
Everyone is a fascist except for the people that are currently fascists. Yeah, Joe Biden, I'm looking at you, bud.
Yeah.
That's really disturbing to me, though.
Iron law of woke projection,
yes.
as James Lindsay would say.
Yes, shout out to James, our buddy. I couldn't agree more. I really do think that is a huge danger, and it really goes to show the lack of actual definitions that are being used in these words, because we currently exist under a quasi-fascist regime, and yet Trump is the fascist just because of voter ID laws. It's like, well, is this just public schooling destroying us? Because to me, that's my read of it. I don't know though.
It's I mean, that's part of it, but a lot of it is the tribal aspect, like everybody repeats the talking points. The media hands them down. The establishment repeats them. You see it. You've seen it where everybody says exactly the same line.
Yeah.
And they don't even shift the words.
Yeah, verbatim.
Verbatim. They say the same line. And so, those are talking points, and they're handed down to the followers because, they say there's 100 people who are all saying the same line.
Right.
That's handed down to 1 million people.
Right.
Now that 1 million radical people who can't think critically for themselves are all repeating the same line.
Yeah.
And that begins to find consensus. Like, oh, well, now 1 million people are all saying this. It must be true.
Yeah. Well, it has a hypnotic effect. If you think about it, when you have everyone saying the same words, really, like, trust the science.
Yeah.
Trust the science.
It's about repeating that.
It's like, but wait, I thought science.
Orwell spoke about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But it's like, I thought science had nothing to do with trust. Like, well, it's trial and error. It's like figuring it out, hypothesizing, and then proving. No, you just trust the science. Exactly. But if they all chant it, they basically, change not just the definition of science, but also the definition of vaccines.
Yeah, they changed the definition of trust too. What does that mean? Definition of vaccines, definition of racism was the first one to be. Was the first one to be changed, and how they did it.
It was a Republican voter.
So how they did it, and it was probably, this is just how they do things now. It was a child who wrote into Merriam-Webster or one of those. I think it was Merriam-Webster wrote in to add the definition of racism to have something to do with
power.
With power.
Yeah.
And it was a child who did it. So, it's.
A child was also responsible for game planning the lockdowns.
Oh.
That's a true story.
Wow. See, so it's a child. So because I think that children are beyond reproach, essentially. So they put the children up there. They put,
Greta.
Yeah, Greta's the David Hogg comes to mind.
Yes.
People who are beyond reproach, so they can't be challenged in the same way you can challenge an adult.
Yeah. That it's so true again, but you're right. I mean, that's really what the left does a lot. They use kids as kind of like a human shield. And I can't think of anything more reprehensible than that.
Yeah.
I can't. Exactly. And what's ironic is, like, they also don't care about babies. Yeah. And they also don't care about bodily autonomy for the children either. They're like, yes, we can kill you at any time, and you also have to take whatever medicine we dictate at any time, and you also have to wear this cloth mask for the rest of your life. It's like I cannot. Sorry, this is getting to be more about me than it is you, but I just can't relate to the left anymore. I can't relate to them at all, and it concerns me because I know many of these people. Do you feel similarly that like you're struggling to actually even relate to them at this
So
point?
we're going to get spiritual now. And
Okay,
this is not religious spiritual. This could be deism. This can be something. All right.
Sure.
There is a theory that your soul resides in your brain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are brainwashed, whoever did the brainwashing takes your soul. All right. Now look at everybody you know who is brainwashed. Like look into their eyes. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore. The person you knew before does not exist anymore. Okay. So there's a way that their soul is controlled, is manipulated, is taken. However you want to look at it, it's a spiritual way to look at it.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard to relate to people who are soulless. And I mean, that's a lot coming from a redhead. All right.
Yo, a ginger just called y'all soulless. You ready? Can you handle this?
Yeah. All right. So that's how you know. I mean,
that's one of my favorite moments in any podcast ever. That was so good.
So that's how you know I mean business. All right. Yeah. So that's why
Incredible.
you can't. That's why you can't relate to people because there's something inside them that is fractured, broken, or gone.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. You know, I don't think like all of them have completely lost their souls, but many I do see
They've compromised it for sure.
Oh, that for sure. But I'm just saying like some of them I feel like could still be reached, but
yeah,
there are some. Rob Reiner comes to mind.
He's lost it.
Yeah, he's so crazy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people like him. Sam Harris.
Yeah.
Sam Harris, who
lost it.
For the record, I never really liked, but still, he had the capacity for like critical thought, and it's just gone. It's just gone. And many of these people are people that prided themselves on their ability for critical thought.
Yeah.
And they thought even so highly of themselves, they were superior to others because they were one of the few people capable of it. And when you see someone like that loses that ability, it's really jarring. You know, it makes you wonder like how is this so powerful? Do you think that there's a concerted effort to do this to our nation?
Absolutely. They either
who by?
I mean, we have our ideas of who it could be by, whether it's the WEF, whether it's the schools, whether it's, companies are facing ESG right now. Like everybody is controlled by somebody.
Right.
So there's a bunch of different controllers coming down to the people. So we don't know exactly who's controlling it, but the idea is to get power over the thought leaders.
Yeah.
All the thought leaders.
Or concoct thought leaders too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And and that includes the media. That's the big tech. Anywhere else that can control the thought leaders or have pull at them. But I mean, Twitter, aside from the stuff that's left over from the old code, it's starting to feel like a different place.
Yes,
because there's free thought. You're seeing ideas that are refreshing, and you haven't seen those in a long time.
It's incredible how many people are just questioning everything you can imagine about the vaccine now, and it's just like the floodgate has been opened because this is the one platform where you're allowed to do it. I mean, just think about how many times we have jokingly, but really seriously, said this episode will not be on YouTube. It cannot be on YouTube. And that's the biggest platform that exists for independent creators to put out video content.
Exactly.
Just flatly and not even close to the other ones. So I really do think that with that protocol in place, those control mechanisms in place, it makes it we're fighting such an uphill battle. It's pretty unfair, to be honest. I still have faith because I believe that liberty wins out in the end. Maybe that's naive at this point, but I still have that belief.
I do too. It could be smaller scale.
Okay. Yeah, just in your own personal life, basically.
Yeah, or your state.
Right.
It could be a smaller scale than. It's not going. We're never going to have federal liberty again. Like it's not going to be 1787 again.
Right.
It's not going to happen. But we have states' rights on that scale. The 10th Amendment.
Yeah. I agree. And I think many states are improving. Actually,
they're trying,
and a lot of people aren't paying attention to that because you just constantly are bombarded with federal, encroachments and things like that. But there is some progress that's happening on the state level, and
they're
I think
definitely trying to erase states' rights. By saying, oh well, like by the federal government overreaching with power, like saying Roe v. Wade, for instance, that infringes on the 10th Amendment. But people are like, oh well, it's unfair to these people, then move to another state. That was the whole purpose of states in the beginning, is if you didn't like it, then you went somewhere else.
Right.
You know, it's a freedom. You had 50 choices of 50 sovereign states to go to the one that best represents you. And, you know, we're seeing it more. We're seeing the differentiation
Got you.
of states now, you know, where we didn't see it, say 20 years ago. It was just a bunch of states, you know, whatever, with this, like, oh, well, that one's good for their seafood. And, you know, that one's got a cool
That's such a great
park,
point. I remember when we were kids, it was like, there was no major difference. It was like, oh, the weather's better.
Yeah,
you know, now you're like, the governor
communist.
Isn't a tyrant. That's a communist. Exactly. Oh, that's so crazy. That's wild to think about. It really is, because I that's exactly how I hadn't even realized the shift in my perception, that it was like, oh, I want to live in Florida because the weather's awesome, to like, I want to live in Florida because I won't be a slave there.
Yes,
wild.
Exactly. And it changed so subtly in our brains, you know?
Man, that's wild. Yeah, that's one of those like frog in the pot type things where it just got so hot in California. I didn't even realize it, that I had changed that.
It was,
perception.
I mean, like, I've always said that Donald Trump was never supposed to happen. We were on the road to the 2030 project. Hillary Clinton should have put in those 3 judges. The Supreme Court would be gone.
We'd be toast.
Yeah. This is how it was supposed to be. And we would just be streamlined into 2030. Donald Trump was not supposed to happen. That happened. You know, so now everything is moving in fast forward, you know, which is why they're calling to pack the court. You know, things like that, because the last thing that's holding us together is the Supreme Court. That's the last thing. And that's why they want to pack it and shift the difference.
Do you think that, this is very conspiracy minded, but by the way, she was referencing Agenda 2030, which is another World Economic Forum deal, which is real.
Yeah.
You could pretend as if it's not, but it's real. And they talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Do you think that COVID was utilized to catch up the time that they had lost because of Trump's presidency?
I feel that way. They were able to lock people down. They were able to experiment on different, they were able to experiment differently. And I'm noticing different pieces of extreme fascism in different countries. It's almost like each of those countries are the what word am I looking for? They're the experiment. Okay. Right. So like Scotland with LGBT, it's everything. They've even renamed pedophiles. Like everything is really bad.
Oh, they're maps now.
Yeah, they're maps.
Yeah.
Australia, when it came to
minor
COVID.
Attracted person, for those that aren't familiar with the woke insanity.
Yep. And Australia was COVID. They went as extreme as they could possibly go.
Well, and New Zealand.
Jesus as well. Christ. Yep. Now Jacinda is stepping down, thank God, but I don't think we're gonna like what comes after her. I think she wasn't extreme enough. That's
the horrifying stuff. Is like, I think you're right. I think that even though she was maybe the worst tyrant in the world, other than, you know, China, maybe.
Yeah.
I think you're right that they're not replacing these people to put in someone better. It's just like, oh, we're going to go harder. We're going to go more tyrannical. And that it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around, because usually you view, you know, the fight between liberty and tyranny on a teeter-totter, where it's like, okay, well, or a pendulum where like kind of almost inevitably comes back. But this time it's just like, it's going really far. And I think when you see the pendulum get that dramatically to the left, I think that you end up with, you know, real violence. And I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about moving forward. Do you think that we can avoid that?
I'd like to think we can. I don't think we're ever going to have another Republican president again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because of because of the ballot harvesting in cities. That's what it comes down to. So
definitely not on YouTube.
Scott Pressler is putting together, you know, Scott Pressler. Yes. So he's big into voting. He was able to flip Miami or whatever, like red. So he's putting together a way to teach Republicans how to do the ballot harvesting that the Democrats do, because you got to beat them at their own game.
Got to.
So if you think about why ballot harvesting works and why it's illegal, but they do it anyway in many states. So you could go into a city and go into one building, like say this one, for instance, you know, how many units are here?
Lots.
Yeah. So say there's 1,000 units in this building, and say, you know, half of them are married. So 1,500 people in one building. You go to a red state, you can walk 10 miles before you find another house, you know, and ballot harvest that way. See why it fails?
Yeah.
You know, so they're able to get as many ballots as they can because everybody is situated in one place.
That's a great point. What is it about cities that makes people insane?
They all live on top of each other. They all live in essential communism. Many of them are low income, so they all live off the government, and they're worried about losing that and having to figure out how to live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that latter point's the best one, because the first one, like, I don't understand why being around all these people and like having people live, you know, above you, beneath you, to your sides, that would make you want to have a more powerful state, you know. But that is the trend, you know. If you live in that kind of situation, you're like, no, I want the biggest government possible. Is there, aside from abolishing public schooling, is there anything we can do near term that would actually shift this long march to progressive insanity?
I mean, that's going to be a state's issue.
Okay.
It's you gotta stop with the SEL. You gotta stop with the CRT. All the stuff that is happening in schools have to stop, and it stopped in Florida.
Josie, I've been told explicitly 1,000 times, none of that's happening in public schools.
It's not. It's definitely not happening. But if it is, it's good.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Not happening, but if it is, here's why it's a good thing.
They're such gaslighting bastards.
Oh,
they really are. They really are gaslighting bastards, because they're like, I don't know if you saw that Project Veritas video last week where
I heard about it. I didn't get to watch it.
Oh, you got to check it out. It'll blow your mind. But this he's bragging about how they're selling.
So smug. They're bragging in every single video.
So smug. But he's selling critical race theory to public schools. I believe it was in Georgia. And he's saying, as long as you don't call it critical race theory, they don't have a clue. They're such idiots. And it's like, we're on to you, brother.
Well, yeah,
we're
they tried to pass it in a college course in Florida. They called it African American Studies.
Oh, interesting.
And Ron DeSantis would be great.
God, I wish Ron Paul was it.
I know, right? Wish he was our governor. But and Ron's good. We like Ron. So Ron DeSantis is like, hell no. Like, I know what this is. Like, we read it. Like, we're not just gonna blindly look at it and say, oh, African American Studies, this is good. And we're gonna read it and be like, no, this is CRT.
Right.
This is evil. And they get rid of it. But the headlines are like, Ron DeSantis
of course
bans African American Studies. You know, because that's what
don't say
want.
Gay.
Yeah, exactly. Don't say gay. You know, so it's all about getting their talking points and being like, well, these are bad. He doesn't want gay people. He doesn't want black people. Like, no, it's like he doesn't want grooming and he doesn't want CRT. Yeah. You know, but that's
what disturbs me is that I don't really want the federal government dictating curriculum at all, you know. But if they're going to, which unfortunately there is a Department of Education, it ought to be abolished, but setting that aside, but if they're going to, I don't want them to have curriculum that says we want every teacher teaching 7-year-olds that they're in the wrong body, potentially, that their race either makes them an oppressor or a victim. You know, these are all things that I think are extremely counter to a healthy foundation for a human being, much less a civilization. And I think that we're doomed if we allow this to persist. Do you think that, like, how many people, like, I'm sure you're friends with some other mothers, are they catching on to this game too?
Yeah, a lot of the mothers have caught on, especially I see it in Florida.
I would imagine,
the Florida mothers. My youngest daughter, her friends are all, a lot of them are Spanish and they come from immigrants, and they're very, very vocal against communism. They're vocal against Cuba, you know. So I think that that's a really good sign, especially in Florida. The mothers up in Massachusetts, they would see things, but they kind of stay out of them, or they think it's a good thing. You know,
those are the ones that concern me most. But the ones that stayed out of it, was it because of social risk?
They're not into politics. Okay, you know, they try to separate themselves from that.
But like, I just feel like even if you're not into politics, you should still be able to realize, like, oh, my kid is reading that he's an oppressor because he's white.
It's good.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's like, oh, but it's a good thing.
That's not good.
I know it's bad, right?
It's so obviously bad.
It's like, how could the schools mislead us?
Okay, you know? So it's still trusting in the institution.
It's trusting in the authority.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you haven't figured out not to trust an authority after 2020 until now, I don't know if we can reach you.
I don't think so.
I honestly, like, it's getting to be so stark that it's kind of hard to imagine that you still need to be told, hey, don't trust these people. They're lying to you constantly. Drives me crazy. Anyways, we're running out of time here, but I wanted to ask, like, what in your adult life is your greatest passion aside from motherhood?
Aside from motherhood, that's a good question. I mean, I have hobbies, but I would say
You look like you knit.
really? Oh God. Oh my God. I'd be a terrible knitter. Like I'd try to knit something and it would like burst into flames. I'm also the same way with plants. I can't keep a plant alive to save my life. My mother actually bought me a plant that only required oxygen and I killed it.
Oh my goodness.
All right. It is
Okay.
my superpower. I will kill plants. They see me and they like jump in front of a bus. All right. No, I can't knit. I can't grow plants. I'm an artist.
Okay. Oh yes, I
love
have
that.
seen some of your paintings.
Yes.
They're great.
Thank you. I'm an artist. I do a lot of animal paintings. I do a lot of like word paintings. I paint things that make me feel joy, and then I share them, and a lot of people, it makes them feel joy, so they'll want to buy a painting from me, so that's painting. I like baking. I'm such a homebody. I like black and white movies, some of my favorites. There's actually a really great one, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it stars Jimmy, oh my God, how did I blank on his name? Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Yes. So he stars in It's a Wonderful Life, but that's a good one. And he's all about liberty. And so he's got a lot of great quotes from that movie. And he's just like super libertarian that goes into
I know.
Congress.
It's a fantastic movie.
Great movie.
Really good.
Yeah. I like It's a Wonderful Life. Like I like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Sabrina.
There's one thing you haven't listed.
What?
You like Twitter. I can tell.
I do.
I can tell she likes Twitter.
I do.
Let's get out of here on this. Give our audience one bit of advice, the best bit of advice you could give if they wanted to grow their social media platform, whatever it may be.
The algorithms. You got to post at 10, you got to post at 4, and you got to post at 8.
This is gold. Don't tell them this.
Yeah. These are the secrets. I'm telling you. You got to retweet yourselves at that time if you want to get the most reach. You got to be funny.
Yeah.
You got to be funny. This is important. And
this is where I fail.
I mean, people are stressed all the time.
Yeah.
Everything is stressful.
Yeah.
There is no part of their life. You got to make them laugh. Okay. That's part of your job as, a person who's a pundit is also to be a little silly and show them bits of your personality on top of just being a libertarian.
I love that because I have Jesse Kelly on Thursday or Friday this week, and I have Dave Smith on the other day this week, and it's like these are both very
funny,
sincerely funny people, but they're also both brilliant.
Yes.
And I feel similarly about you, actually. Your Twitter account in particular, sorry, ladies, there's very few women that are funny. You happen to actually be one of them. Your tweets are genuinely funny.
No,
and
thank you.
I don't think you get enough credit for that. I think a lot of people will be like, well, she's just pretty, so that's why her account does so well. It's like, no, you have some real bangers in there, and you drag people legitimately. Like, you're a savage for like a little tiny lady. You're like, you break some fools. So I don't know. I think that's also important, is to the humor side, but also some savagery, because she brings it for sure.
Yeah, I gotta tear people up. Like I don't take bullshit. I don't take malicious intent. That's important.
Yes.
I don't let that slide.
Right.
So a lot of people don't do that to me, but the people who do, I put them in the spotlight. I'm like, okay, well, here's the attention that you wanted. I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to drag you, and I'm going to
You're going to regret asking
until you never come for another woman like this again. Like this is I don't deal with it.
I think I've seen you drive some people to delete their entire
yes
accounts.
I've had people delete their accounts before, and it's not that I have a large following, so that I destroy them.
Yes.
So I don't tolerate it.
Don't mess with her.
No,
don't come for her.
I can handle, making mistakes. I can handle miscommunication.
Yeah.
I can even handle being offended, because that's on me.
Right.
How I respond to things. But if you're malicious to me, if you go out of your way to try to harm me or harm my family, I don't tolerate it.
Gloves
I shut you
gloves
right
come
down.
off.
It comes off. I shut you right down, and I destroy you, and I make you cry. I'm going to make you cry. So let's not.
That's gonna be just a little 1 second gif. I'm gonna make you cry.
There's a lot of bangers in here.
Oh my god, so many. Questioning people's souls as a ginger was definitely my favorite. Anyways, this has been an absolute pleasure.
This has been so great.
Thank you for being my first ever LLIRL TRHL guest.
That's good. I can't say all those letters. Dyslexic or something.
Let's tell the audience about the reason that you're actually in town, and and what show you're going to be on this afternoon, if it's public knowledge.
Yes, I can say.
Okay.
I'm going to be on, I think it'll air tonight. Tommy Loren is Fearless.
Hell
I'll be
yeah.
doing that. I'll be airing it right from this awesome studio. So yeah, that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. I can't wait to watch. I'm going to be like standing in the corner watching her talk to hundreds of thousands of people. Crazy time to be alive. Seriously though, absolute pleasure. Go ahead and tell people where they can follow you and we'll get out of here.
Yeah. You can follow me at TRHL Official over at Twitter. And I'm also there at YouTube, but I don't really post that often. So yeah, that's really the two places to find me at this point.
Perfect. I will keep that information in the description below. And also you can follow me at Liberty Lock Pod on Twitter. I am kind of taking a break right now because I am being algo suppressed. YouTube obviously has also given me 2 strikes. I'm trying to get one of those lifted. We'll see if it happens. In the meantime, make sure that you subscribe over on Rumble. It is Clint Russell, 2 S's, 2 L's, RUSSELL. And if you want to support my work, go to libertylockdown.locals.com. We're out.
Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. Please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where